Good night or good evening, and welcome to Happy Feet. Tonight, our speaker is Amy Sullivan. She is a licensed professional clinical counselor supervisor, certified trauma specialist, and the founder and lead steward of Rooted Compassion Counseling and Consulting. She works with individuals who are struggling with anxiety, grief, or who have experienced trauma. As an eye movement desensitization desensitization and reprocessing EMDR trained clinician, Amy helps people move through the effects of trauma and embrace post-traumatic growth. Also, a soul collage facilitator, Amy uses the activity of collage making to help clients realize their strengths, process events which with they are struggling. Amy is known to be warm and inviting, a humorous presenter, thank goodness, who can make the information being presented easily understood and put into practice. And I don't know if you know this, Amy, but I got just a wonderful uh, recommendation from you from Deb Dana's foundation, and she had said that that you have a lot of relationships with local cancer support communities as well,
Mhm.
but she said that you are extremely talented and on that using polyvagal theory as the basis to examine autonomic nervous system responses and behavior. So from there, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Do you want me to be letting people in? Because did you just make me the host?
Oh, let's see.
So I let two people in.
Oh, okay,
Oh,
good.
you're still the host too. Yeah, I'll let
Okay.
you do
I
that.
just wasn't, I was reading, not watching.
Right,
Thank you,
right,
thank you.
right. Yeah, yeah. Well, thanks for having me. If I remember correctly, you're in Philadelphia or in Pennsylvania, right?
Pittsburgh, right.
Yeah. So are people happy that the Eagles won, or are we mad because we're Steelers fans, or what's happening today?
We're happy that you're here. And we're about 5 hours away from Philly.
I know this would be like if the Browns won, and I would be mad because I'm a Bengals fan. So I get that. So I am in Cincinnati, and Jen did find me through a sort of random way, but I am really glad to be here. I've done a decent amount of work with Cancer Support Community, which is local here in Cincinnati, and like I think pretty much everybody have been impacted by cancer. Not for myself, thank God, and knock on wood, but people I dearly love. So I'm here as an ally and a supporter, and am really looking forward to sharing this information in hopes that it'll be beneficial to all of you. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And then if you'll just give me a minute to, no, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay, just a few technical difficulties, that's all. No problem. This is still not doing it. Okay. I'm gonna try one more time. And it doesn't wanna work. Okay. What happens? How do you feel if it's just like this? Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay. Sorry about that. Um, so I just did a little takeoff on our Happy Feet group, and we'll talk about not so much getting steady on our feet in terms of balance, but steady on our feet in terms of how our emotions are. Um, so I work from the perspective that our mental health, our stress, our ability to manage stress really starts in our nervous system. And for some people, they think this is a little bit of a weird idea because we're taught that everything's in our brain, it's all in your head. If you change your thoughts, you can change your life. If you change your behaviors, you can change. And those things are true. But I want to invite you back to maybe fourth grade, where we all learned about the flee, fight, and freeze reaction. And we learned about that. If you remember, we were taught that in the face of physical danger, humans will do one of three things. They will try to run away or flee. They will fight, or they will freeze and basically play dead like a mouse might if it's in the mouth of a cat or a possum. You know, there are certain animals that we know kind of shut down every system in their body and act like they're dead. And then in that moment when their predator lets up, they take off and run away. So we have similar reactions. But when it comes to our mental health, we look at those reactions through the lens of feeling emotionally safe or not. And when we consider that, um, we, we try to identify what makes a situation feel emotionally safe for us and what doesn't. How do we know that in our body? And for the most part, we don't do the typical behaviors of flee, fight, and freeze when we're faced with an emotional challenge or discomfort or a stressful situation. We do something different than we do if we're being physically challenged, right? So if there was a lion coming in this room, I would try to run away. But if I'm feeling um, say the Steelers had just beat the Bengals, I might be coming in with a little bit of edge on my shoulder to talk to a bunch of people from Pittsburgh, right? I wouldn't really, but we can think about kind of common everyday experiences where we don't really feel emotional danger, but we can feel an unease or a discomfort. And that would come from um, other people. So you might be able to think of people in your life that you have to interact with that you just don't always feel as comfortable with. It might be somebody at work, it might be a relative, it might be, gosh, my husband and I see it sometimes when we go out with another couple and maybe we really like one of the people and the other one not so much. And it really impacts how we live in the world. Those experiences of emotional discomfort also might come from a diagnosis to ourselves or a loved one. It could come from a very simple interaction. You know, if you think about how you feel, how your body feels when somebody cuts you off in traffic, and that kind of hits you on both places, right? Where, oh my gosh, it could have been a physically dangerous situation, but also we tend to get sort of irritated or even angry at people who drive erratically when we're trying to be safe. So um, I'm going to stop right here and just say, if you have any questions or thoughts, please put them in the chat. And Jen, you can interrupt me whenever you want. I'm the youngest of 10 children. I have six brothers. And so I like to tell people you can't really hurt my feelings because I don't have any left to be hurt after all those brothers. So, and I'm used to the chaos and the interruptions and whatever. So, I definitely want to answer any questions or explain anything because I do know that this is a little bit of a different way to look at our emotional well-being. I'm going to ask you to think about, and if you will, maybe comment in the chat, and Jen, maybe you can share those with me, how you know when you're afraid. How do you know when you're scared? And I'm also comfortable with people unmuting and sharing as well, by the way. Yeah.
Heart beat faster, heart races, heart races.
Good. So we have a good feeling for our heart. Does anybody get like hot or sweaty when they get afraid or anxious? Some people feel their shoulders tighten up. Some people describe a sensation in their belly. Yeah. Anything else pop up there, Jen?
Mostly cry, dry mouth, cold
Yeah.
hands, my neck holds tension,
Yeah. Good. So, how do you know when you're sad? Do you have different
face
bodily
face
reactions?
from face flushes and anxious.
Yeah.
Um, the difference between um scared and sad.
Yeah. So, how do people know when you're sad?
Cry, tired, feel like crying, tired, quiet,
Mhm. Sometimes people will also describe an aching in their heart
the look in
or,
my eyes.
yeah, an aching in their belly, some sensation in the torso. And how do you know when you're happy? So we might feel
Smile,
lighter. Yeah,
laugh more, eyebrows raised, smile, laugh.
yeah. Generally, people feel lighter in their body, and many times they have a lighter sensation
That just they just type that. Feel
in
lighter.
their. Sorry, my phone is talking. I put it on silent. Sorry about that if you could hear that. Yeah, so when we're happy, we have different bodily reactions. We might feel lighter in our body. We're smiling. Like people said, it's easier to laugh and enjoy ourselves. All of those body sensations that we just described are modulated or created by our nervous system in response to how our nervous system is assessing the world and the people in it. And really specifically, we're looking at our vagus nerve. So, the work I'm presenting to you today was developed by Dr. Stephen Porges. He developed something called the polyvagal theory, which I began studying. So before I had a midlife revolution and became a licensed massage or a licensed mental health therapist, I was a massage therapist for 20 years. And when I was a massage therapist, I got into teaching infant massage to parents so that they could massage their babies, um, and learned about this theory. They explain it as the science behind how babies attach to their caregivers. But what's really important for us to note is that it doesn't end when we grow up. This system of ours, our nervous system, is continually looking for emotional safety in our relationships with other people and in the environment that we're in. And it's different degrees for different people, right? Some of us really get our cups full from a lot of interaction with other people. Some people like a quiet, maybe a pretty place. But for me, for instance, when my house is like disorganized visually, I can feel myself get a little on edge. So it just feels better when everything's put away. So that was fun when I had little kids, wasn't it? There was stuff everywhere always. But other people don't even see the clutter. They don't mind. They don't care. And so it's important that we all sort of find our way with those kinds of things. So Dr. Porges has taught us that it is our nervous system and specifically our vagus nerve, which I can get into a lot of anatomy and physiology if you want me to, but most people don't. It's a cranial nerve. It's the only cranial nerve that leaves the head, and it serves every organ in our torso, which is why so many of our sensations around feelings live in our torso, our shoulders, even the neck, right? And the sensations in our torso. What he discovered is that the nervous system isn't just an electrical system that's sending messages back and forth about um, starting digestion when we eat food, or keeping us upright, or monitoring all the different things that our body does. Specifically, the vagus nerve is assessing the world through our sight and what we hear, and determining if we feel emotionally safe or not. So this is why I and everybody who works with me in the counseling practice that I own, we help people come to understand where our emotions are coming from. We don't typically think, I'm scared, therefore I'm going to make my heart beat faster. It goes the opposite way. We receive some information, the nervous system says, this isn't great. Our heart starts beating faster. And when we feel that increase in energy in our body, it can pattern into laughter, into anxiety, into fear, into sadness, depending on what we're experiencing in the world. So I just want to stop and see if there are any questions, because I know for most people, this is a little bit of a different look at stress.
I can pause the recording if anybody has a question. If not, we can move
Yeah.
on.
And if you don't want your question on the recording, you can also pop it in the chat too, right? And Jen can ask it for you. Okay. So this is why the nervous system is important when dealing with stress. So when we're living in difficult situations, people are sick, we're unsure of a diagnosis or a treatment plan, we're watching a loved one go through this, we're experiencing that. And then all the other things that come with life that can cause stress. When we can begin to notice what's happening in our body, we can then respond in ways that will help to minimize the negative impact of stress. Okay. So Dr. Porges tells us that we have three states of the nervous system as it pertains to our physiological self, but also our emotional self. So you can see on this slide, we see the flee or fight or freeze in the bottom two sections there. But what Dr. Porges has taught us is that as mammals, different from other forms of animals, we have the ability to interact with others that has the potential to bring a great state of calm to us. So I'll give you an example. Probably about, I don't know, 30 years ago, my husband and I were hiking. We were backpacking actually. And I was walking in front, and suddenly he was on my backpack pushing me forward. He said, "Go, go, go." And I said, What happened?" And he said, "You almost stepped on a rattlesnake back there." And it coiled, like he watched it coil. And I'm so ridiculous. I turn around and say, "I want to see it." And he doesn't let me, and he's pushing, and so we do walk on. But later I thought to myself, after I learned this this theory about our nervous system is that that snake as a reptile who was maybe 100th of our size didn't do what Dave did. Dave said, "Come on, we're going to go together. Let's you and I manage this together." And very smartly, he said, "Let's flee, right? Let's get out of here." That snake didn't think at all about needing help from another snake. It doesn't have a nervous system that looks to connect with others in the way that we do for comfort. But when we look at mammals, we can think about all the names for groups of mammals, right? So I think I can't remember all of them, but there's like pods. Maybe dolphins are in pods and schools, and um, these are even birds get categorized like this: gaggles, um, posses, gangs, packs, dogs and packs. We have names for that because we all recognize it's easy to see that mammals live more happily when we're in interaction with others. And our nervous system reflects that every mammal has a branch of the vagus nerve that supports our interaction with each other. And so that's where we add the word flock. So Dr. Porges calls it social engagement, mobilization, or immobilization. I just thought, wouldn't a great a fourth F word there makes sense. And so I use the one my mom would want me to use in the good language. And we added flock, flee, fight, or freeze to shut down. So in general, when we're feeling emotionally well, we're usually either with other people or we have positive lived experiences with others. So, for example, I'm very much an introvert. I love to spend time by myself or with my dog, reading, hiking, making collages. And it doesn't mean I can't interact with people. I just need a balance of both. So it's not to say that I have to be with people to have this nice experience of social engagement. I can sort of have enough experiences on board that I can go interact or not interact, but experience life on my own and still feel safe and connected in those relationships. When we move out of that state, so um, I was going to use a funny story. So if my husband and I sit down to eat and there's no music on and I hear him chewing, then I move out of that calm state. Thanks for laughing, Jen. You're the only face I can see. So I appreciate it. Feedback. See, this facial interaction is so important. So it makes me feel like I'm on the right track. And I can only see if your face because the whole screen is this slide. So when I move out of that feeling of flock or social connection, and I can hear him chewing loud, I can fall down into this state, which is called mobilization or flee or fight. But it's really, I'm just really kind of irritated, right? And so I can feel myself then not wanting to be as nice. I'm not really enjoying my food as much because I can feel myself like, oh my God, like, did I marry a cow or a man? Like, what's happening? Um, and the solution I found is that if I put on music, then I hear the music and not him, and our meal is better, and we move back into that calm, socially engaged flock place. So any day, right? You could be having a wonderful day and you go for treatment and something doesn't go as well, and you move down into this maybe kind of anxious or angry um, state of mind. And what Dr. Porges also told us is if we sink lower, then that anxiety, it's very easy to drop down into that third level, which we refer to as freeze or some level of shutdown. And each of these stages has a continuum. So I can be in that mobilized flee or fight. I can be really mad at one end and just kind of irritated at the other end, or really anxious, or just not quite as anxious. And then with that freeze to shutdown, the continuum there could be a moment where somebody says something so outrageous to you, you're like, like you don't even know what to say. And then an hour later, you're like, oh, I should have said this and I should have said that. So it's this kind of momentary freeze to the other end of the shutdown continuum is I can't get out of bed because I'm so depressed. I can't even brush my teeth. I can't even, and then even further on where we start to have a biological shutdown, where the body starts to shut down um, in response to too much threat. So I'm going to just stop there and see if there are any questions coming in on the chat, because I know this is a lot of information very quickly.
There's one funny one and one serious question. Oh my God, is there a speaker for loud chewing husbands?
I'm here. Play music.
I, why is it so loud? Like, why does this become so magnified? I don't want to waste time on that, but we'll be. But and there's another question: is there a vagus nerve stimulator? The vagus nerve stimulators that are now on the market helpful for some of these issues with stress? And
Yeah.
you, okay.
Yeah, so I always said no. Like there are natural ways we can do that. So humming is a really nice way to activate our vagus nerve because it vibrates the back of our throat and it actually touches to the vagus nerve. Extended exhales. So exhales that are longer than the inhale. And you can do that by consciously breathing. You can also do that by singing or playing a wind instrument. Those are really nice kind of ways to facilitate that. Um, Oh, I just am drawing a blank now. So there, but I'll come back to that. There are natural ways to stimulate the vagus nerve. If you're on social media, you'll see 501 ways to stimulate your vagus nerve, and a lot of them are reaches. So we like to keep it real within research. So the extended exhale when breathing, the humming, the interacting with other people, the kinds of music or tones that you hear. So one of the ways that the vagus nerve really shows up in this flee, fight, or freeze system gets turned on is by the tones we hear. So if I came on here and talked to you like this, it wouldn't feel nice, right? And some of you might even be annoyed with my regular voice. And then other people have said, "Oh, it's so soothing." And I'm like, "You're out of your mind," but whatever, because I don't find my voice soothing at all. I suppose there are times. Um, but so tone of voice, and when you think back to if you were either a parent or if you remember your parents, that a lot of times moms use this what we call mother ease, and it's this soft sing-songy voice, and we speak to our pets like that. We speak to children like that. And we still like it even when we grow up, right? It just has to be in the right context. I wouldn't want my boss talking to me like that, but I wouldn't mind if my husband did or my friends did with that kind of soft, gentle, prosodic voice. And so, very quickly, what we hear in terms of tone can very quickly turn on that flee, fight or freeze system. And apparently, chewing loud turns that on as well, or any other unpleasant sounds. Yeah.
There was one question in here. Would these feelings apply to postpartum depression or anxiety?
Yeah, so I think, and this is the reason I've built my whole business on this concept, is that anything that has to do with struggles with our mental health start in the nervous system. And so depression is a version of this immobilized freeze state. Anxiety tends to live in the flee or fight state. And it's not only the nervous system, but it's our nervous system interacts with our hormones. So you think about, getting pregnant, being pregnant, postpartum time, our hormones are doing all kinds of things, but also our neurotransmitters. So maybe you've learned in some of the from some of the speakers that you've had that stress can turn on the I just drew a blank. HPA axis. So it's a system of our body that works with the hippocampus, the pituitary gland, and the adrenal gland. And that fires up when we get stressed and it releases cortisol, epinephrine, norepinephrine that increases that stress response, right? So there is this really integrated physiological experience that happens for people. Any other questions?
Yeah, no, I think that's it.
Okay. So I'll recap a little bit while here for a moment. Basically, our nervous system is constantly monitoring our world and the people in it to assess if we feel emotionally safe. That action comes from the brainstem, which is totally unconscious, unless we bring awareness to it, right? So it's here and it's happening, but for the most part, we're taught to ignore it. But now, when you get that little, butterfly feeling in your belly, or that ache, or that like heaviness in your belly, maybe you'll go, "Oh, wait a minute. I think this might be the start of an emotional reaction. Let me step back in here. I remember that weird girl Amy was talking last week at the thing. Maybe this is something, right?" And when we can start to notice that and respond, we can help ourselves maintain that place of calm. And I always say that feelings are like toddlers. If you remember, your toddler comes to you and they say, "Mom, Mom, Mom, Mommy," right? If we ignore the kid, they get louder. And our feelings do the same thing. They generally come very gently and give us a little nudge. And when we don't listen, it gets louder and louder. And so when I say our feelings, I also mean our stress. Our stress level does that. So if we can address the stress as best we can when we're experiencing it, we can keep it lower than it getting really intense. So when the nervous system gets a read of something doesn't feel quite right, it turns on different systems in our body and it moves us from this social engagement, this interactive, happy place to some kind of situation where with the mobilization, with the flee or fight, we generally have more energy in our body. We're mad, we feel anxious. I always describe anxiety. For me, it feels like 1,000 blue butterflies in my torso flapping their wings. That's what it feels like to me. Everybody has a different experience of it. But when I get that blue butterfly feeling, which feels nicer than calling it anxiety, by the way, for me, I don't know. Oh, the butterflies are back, right? I bring a hand to my chest and I breathe. And this hand to my chest reminds me that I have my own back, that I'm here supporting myself. And I have people around me who support me too, which is lovely. But this helps me feel not alone. And it also reminds me to breathe. So when I start to move into that state, okay, something's going on and I'm going to take care of this, right? Do I need to ask for help? Do I need to rest? Do I need to discharge? And discharge is an interesting concept that I don't think we talk about enough, right? When we talk about being stressed, everybody's like, meditate, do grounding exercises, do your breathing, you need to calm down. But sometimes that energy that builds up when we get into this mobilized state, that needs to get to be discharged before we can calm down, right? So has anybody ever gone into like a time when you're going to exercise and you feel kind of anxious, and then after the exercise you feel calmer, which is, yeah, probably like 99% of us? It's because that movement and that exercise allows us to discharge and get rid of that energy. And it's really important. So exercise is good, but we can't always do it. What if I'm anxious and I just got done with a client and I have another client coming in? How am I going to discharge? So for me, I can feel some discharge sometimes just by shaking my arms or standing up and shaking my limbs. Sometimes I'll, especially it's been cold here too. My office is right next to a park, so sometimes I'll just go out and walk for maybe 10 minutes, and that helps. But it was so cold, and we got dumped on these last few weeks with a lot of snow that I'm just walking. Our office isn't big, but I'll walk the first floor and then I'll go down the steps, walk the basement, come back up the steps, just for a little bit of movement to get that discharge. Other ways of discharging is crying, right? I had a supervisor during my internship, and there was a stressful experience, and I was crying, and he said, "We're going to have to meet and talk about your stress management skills." And I just said to him, "Crying is a stress management skill." Because you generally feel better when you discharge. Laughing can be a discharge as well. Venting can be a discharge. We just want to make sure we're not doing the same story over and over and over again, because that can just kind of solidify it in our system. So if we need to tell a story, tell it and then just put it down. So that's a big message I try to give people, is that it's not always just about calming down. Sometimes your system won't calm down when it needs to get the energy out. Remember kindergarten where we used to shake our sillies out? I'm just shaking my stress out now, right? Okay, let me see where we want to go here. Yep, ways to discharge. So I talked a little bit about that. And then ways to calm. And Jen, have you had people here who talk about ways to calm, like meditation or prayer or grounding exercises like breathing?
Not this series. So
Okay.
if you want to share.
Yeah, so you may have heard of all these things, and some people like meditation and some people don't. Um, there are so many religious experiences that can really help calm us, praying the rosary, any kind of beads where there are a couple different religions where they use beads to pray or just to focus their attention. Community prayer is really helpful. Grounding, like um, breathing exercises, again, especially where your exhale is longer than your inhale. I love when it's warmer to go outside and take my shoes off and just stand on the grass with bare feet. It feels good to me to feel like I just feel connected to the earth. That can be a way to calm or ground myself. Um, Reading is a nice way, depending on what we're reading. Are there other ways that some in this group use grounding techniques or other techniques to help you calm?
What would like walking be discharge as opposed to calm?
I think it can be both, right? I've noticed that if I walk with music, I tend to get a little more of the discharge. But if I walk without any music or any stimulation to my ears, I'm actually really calm and creative in that time and not on a treadmill. It's got to be outside, right? Yeah.
There's gardening,
Yes.
visualization.
Yes.
I like to write
Yes.
and then burn it.
Yeah. Writing is a great way. Yeah. Writing is kind of like a way to vent. And the other thing I love about writing is, and this theory actually tells us, so when I mentioned before, it was nice, Jen, to see you raise your hand or laugh when I made a joke. We are constantly unconsciously, constantly and unconsciously monitoring how we respond to people based on what their face tells us, really. Maybe some or oh, those kinds of small reactions. And having that interaction can be really helpful for us in terms of calming or feeling more upset. But we constantly change and modify. When we go to write, if we're writing for ourselves, we really meet our true selves there. Because if we are writing for ourselves, we're not monitoring or changing what we're expressing based on somebody else's facial expressions and interaction with us. So I love writing for that reason. Yeah.
There's scrubbing floors and working dough.
Who is that person? And I need them to have my address.
Come on over.
Right? Yeah.
Cooking.
Yeah. I would generally put things that are more physically active as discharge, but not always. I mean, you discharge and you're going to feel calmer. I think the issue comes in when you're trying to calm and you really need to discharge by doing something. Yeah.
Do you always need to do both?
Not necessarily. No, sometimes I can just take my breath to calm. And sometimes when I discharge, then I am calm. So I don't need to say, go stand outside or put my hands in soil or, sit down and breathe or visualize. Those are good ones.
So how do you know which one you need?
You pay attention to yourself and you notice, if you're trying to calm and it won't come, try some discharge. But most of us are taught to live from here up, right? Where we just pay attention to what's happening in our brain. But if we start to notice our body a little more, it will tell us if we need discharge. You'll feel that energy in your body. Yeah. And all of this is going to change with treatments and medications, isn't it? That your energy level is going to change, your ability to maybe exercise like you did before is going to change. And so it's definitely important to be paying attention to what you need in any moment, given where you are physiologically. Yeah. So I want to be respectful of our time because I could talk for about 12 more hours about this, but apparently we're done in 10 minutes. And you wanted to leave time for questions. So I thought I would stop here and do that. I know you have more on your slides and maybe I can come back at a later time to talk about that. But yeah, I just wanted to open it up for questions.
We can definitely do questions, but are there any that and I think these last two slides have been very good about just giving us like tools, you know.
Yeah. These take a longer time to sort of explain.
Okay.
There are good videos on YouTube explaining this. So it's called the hand brain model, which I think you have in your handout. So, yeah, I
Okay.
always put too much on slides. Then I talk too much, and here we are.
Okay, well, we'll turn to questions.